First of all, I would like to thank the Green Carbon webinar for this, and especially point out that Christian, he still lists himself as a PhD student. I guess it's officially that way, but he has put in his dissertation thesis on it, so it won't be too long before it will be Dr. Christian Werther. So our congratulations to you for what's coming soon, we hope. We're looking forward to hearing about that, okay? I get my...
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, we're on the screen there. Okay, I'm talking about rock kilns and biochar in Kenya. My co-presenter is Gilbert Mwangi, who's the project manager in Kenya. He's trying to join the session today if he can, but internet connections and all such issues to rural Kenya is not necessarily guaranteeing he will be present. Let me. Okay, why this presentation? It is essentially an interim report on the first project that puts rock kilns into daily use. I have many slides. They'll all be available at my website, and they'll be visible on the recording, but you can stop on it. But I am not going to spend very much time on the different slides. For example, this one, things which have been shown before. This is the 4C kiln, which is the predecessor to the rock kiln back in 2014 to 19. And it did not rotate. And there's some other explanations about it. But in August of 2019, I invented, along with some help from Gary Gilmore, the rotatable covered cavity, or ROCC, RoCC kiln. And we had a couple of them done in Illinois. But in November, I took a trip to Kenya, and I visited my friends up in North Kinangop at Wisdom Stoves. And there's where I met up with Gilbert, who was the manager there. And there's a picture that's Gilbert with me and the stove that we built, the first one, rock kiln outside of the United States. It took a metalworking shop 24 hours to do it. From noon one day, they were done by noon the next day. The report is available at my website, woodgas.com. Go to the resources tab and you'll find it into there. Okay, it talks about char production and everything else. Back in December, I went to IMMT. That is where Dr. Manish Kumar works, and he's the other presenter today. And together and with his staff, we built the unit that's seen on the left-hand side of the screen. And then in California in February, we built a 4-foot diameter one, which we've shown. There's also 4-foot diameter units in South Africa and Pennsylvania. Then COVID arrives and many things go on hold, including Gilbert's employment, which ends, and he becomes the custodian of the rock kiln, which I had built over there in Kenya. So it takes a year before something is happening. And Dr. James Ochenku of Kisii University in Western Kenya, a friend of mine interested in biochar, he's in touch. And I'm suggesting that we bring the rock kiln from where Gilbert has it. And so he brings it over there. 2 more units were built at Kisii University. It was the first successful rock kiln usage with rice husks as a fuel. That's what's shown in the picture. For your information, the secret of it, or the key to it, is gradual pushing in of the rice husks. You can't just dump in big piles of it at one time, all right? Gilbert then went to Bungoma. Bungoma is a town in Western Kenya. It's close to the, not on, but close to the border with Uganda. I'd been there several times, and there had been other biochar activities in that community in the past. And so we were going to there. And so we set up an operation which we call Biochar Pamoja Kenya. Pamoja is the Kiswahili word for together, or juntos, juntos in Spanish, Portuguese, etc. One of the terms which I like to use, because I don't do anything by myself. I work with people, other people doing things, and that's part of the fun. That's how we can get things done. So he builds 4 more of the rock kilns, including the first 2 of them, which are with the H frame design that you'll see in just a second. And then we started our biochar production in late July. The objectives of this project: we are the test case for fabrication, for fuels, for biochar production, for sequestration, for carbon credits, for understanding the expenses, for checking sustainability. All of these things all come intermixed, and it's really quite a challenge facing all of them at once. In terms of the fabrication, these are pictures of the H frame. The one on the left is a single barrel unit, and you can drive it around almost like a wheelbarrow, okay, that type of thing. The longer one on the right with 2 barrels end to end, much more to our liking. We have converted all of the units now into being the 2-barrel length units, rolls through. The wheels on it, by the way, are hubs of wheels of motorcycles and scooters, that type of thing. Take off the tires, we don't need that, and just put them on. We're using a lot of scrap metal. We use varieties of different things, square tubing and barrels. So the price of these things is about, it's under $200 when you're even starting to put on some of the extras with it, okay? The H frame, the H is defined as, looking at it from the end, you'll see the letter H in there, as opposed to the X frame, which is here, where these end pieces cross, and they don't have the flexibility. So we prefer the H frame. There's a couple more of the units with fire in them, and there's a discharge shelf that's not yet been put in, but it will be in underneath the kiln, underneath the barrels, and the gravity, it just dumps straight out onto it, and then we can push this char off of the tray and directly into a collection barrel. Collection barrels, we first were using 20-liter or 5-gallon buckets, and we would weigh each one, multiple buckets each time. It was a bit of a chore, but we moved over to now on the right-hand side, we're able to fill the char into a 55-gallon or 200-liter drum, and then there's a tripod that will pick it up. You just grab one of the free leg of the tripod and push it upward, and the whole barrel will raise up with it being connected with the scale on it. We get dry weights. We are not having any water whatsoever in our measurements of char. This is important because you're going to try to get carbon credits, and it's based on the weight of the char. And if you've got unknown quantities of water into it, it really throws things off. So we like this method very much. And then we partially suffocate it, but then we can dump it out. Once it's weighed, you can dump it out, and you can put water on, you can put dirt on it, you can do anything you'd like with it. It's the wrong way. This is when we do our weights, we actually are recording them 4 times. First one is a photograph with a timestamp, a digital camera, and you can actually zoom in and see the numbers on the scale showing up. We also then write that down on a form that we have from CIRCS for the char track purposes, and that data then is also put into a spreadsheet that we don't show there, but a spreadsheet so we can do other calculations. Coming and soon to be released is the CIRCS char track mobile app for transmission to its blockchain-enabled component. This is a very sophisticated program for keeping track of what actually is going on over there. I would point out, it says in red there, clear data are essential for verification and certification. If you can't give enough proof to convince your buyers that you actually did the sequestration process, you're not going to get much of the credits. You have to verify it and then be up to the scrutiny for certification. So the one example there, we're showing that we had 33.95 kilograms of char in the barrel. There's always an empty weight of the barrel made and recorded on the sheet, as well as the weight of the barrel with the char in it, and then the whole system takes care of it, the subtraction within it. Types of biomass, many types. This is a woody type of brush and stuff around with. I got a whole bunch of slides here. I'm just going to whiz through them fast. Mexican sunflower. It's a weed, and it just grows all over, and we can go through and we can chop it down, and it gives a reasonable type of char. These are just some pictures of what's around in the area. Some places it was more grassy things, and this is where we could actually, we had a few runs where we were doing it with the sort of the grass cuttings and clippings. We've also done things where it was collected up from within the between like that, like here underneath these trees, a partial weak cornfield into there, more of these branches and stuff, and up for the grabs. The landowners are happy to have this stuff removed. We prefer if they would cut it, but certainly we're trying to prevent them from just doing open field burning, which is very bad for the climate. So we're actually thinking we might be able to claim some carbon emission reduction credits because of this service also. And some more piles of biomass. And there's a couple with the rock kilns close by. All of this stuff goes in, comes out as char that we then weigh up and measure. So if you haven't been to Africa, if you haven't been to Kenya or over to Bungoma, which is up in the upper higher elevations up by Lake Victoria, I recommend it. Lovely spot. Char production, quantitative results. We're talking about one worker, one run, one kiln, one day, and the average is about 29 kilos coming out from it. So in a week, they've got 110 weeks, it's a ton, but we can try to have more than one kiln. We have more than one run per day. We're trying to get multiples up on this. Our production started in the end of July, and July, August, we didn't do very much. September is on the way up. October, November, December were learning months and what we're doing with it. January was quite a boost on it. The dry season came in a little bit better than, the other seasons were more moist. February month is not yet complete. We have from our database, from our spreadsheet, we're able to calculate out the feedstock types that is recorded on the sheet as to what is the feedstock. So we're seeing that about thirds, a little more than thirds, are in corn stalks, and the other part is in non-wood vegetation, that Mexican sunflower. The tables coming off from the spreadsheet look like this. We've got a total of 4 tons of biochar, but the next slide puts this into the context of when it happened. And we notice that October, November, December, we're getting corn stalks. The harvest has been in, we're able to get it. Now in January, we're very much over toward the non-woody vegetation into there. We'll see what comes up. We've got more months ahead of us. We've only been operating 7 months total. Sorry. You can't kill it. It'll stop. The next slide is, get myself right. We bag up the char, and we've got weights written down on them. We'd like to maybe standardize it. Some of our procedures are still being worked out. Most of the time it's in the bags, but we can also put it into fields and we just leave it there. especially if we're fairly secure, like these are close to homes, less people are going to mess around with it at night or something like that. These are just issues that you have to deal with in it. Our soil sequestration projects are just getting started now with the biochar testing, and we're doing 7 plots with about 10 by 5 meters on each one, and the list is there of nothing added in biochar alone, synthetic fertilizer, etc. Okay, I have a variety of those, and we're putting it into a test plot. The 4 pictures from left to right, that's the Bungoma area, up in the far western side of Kenya. Zooming down in, and then you see the red arrow pointing to the southeast corner of Fred's farm. And that is Fred's farm, and that is where we have some of the stakes already marked out for the plots of to be planted, etc. So it's not particularly good soil. It is just a reasonable, I mean, it's selected for being able to show it things. We're preparing our char. We've got, we're mixing in dung at a 1 of dung to 2 of char ratio. And this shows in there for purposes of carbon credits. Pictures like this are needed. They're dated, they're time-stamped. We might also even have to move up to doing video. In the end, somebody needs to be wanting to buy carbon credits. And so we have to have some convincing evidence. So this is just examples of what we think is going to be good enough. And we always can go back to having videos of it. If for the skeptics, you'll never please them. So you can't have everything. Here's again, mixing stuff out in the field. You see the scale on the left-hand side. Claiming carbon credits. We are working on carbon dioxide removal, not on emission reductions. And removals are much easier to in our case, to document because we have physical kilos of biochar that can be touched, handled, pictured, put in sacks, weighed, everything that you want to do with it. Whereas emission reductions, you're not sure what's the impact of preventing somebody from not having to burn their field off. There's a whole bunch of things that have to relate to that. In the middle there, we're saying that our 4 tons of biochar, which we have produced thus far, and with about 60% fixed carbon. The corn's more like 55, the woody biomass stuff could be 65. We're not claiming high numbers. We're fairly conservative in our approach here. Then this gives us 2.4 tons of charcoal of removal. And at the ratio of 1 to 3.5, because we've already deducted because of the 60%, we're using 3.5 ratio, we get 8.4 tons of CO2 removal that we can take this to the marketplace when it is certified. And with going rates for removals in the neighborhood of $150 per ton of CO2, that becomes $1,260. We're not making any money on this, so we've got the labor expenses, we have other things on it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is the carbon removal part, no emissions mentioned in it. There is also the value of the physical biochar, which you are not selling when you sell carbon credits. You just have to make sure that that physical biochar is never going to be burned. And so we are able to sell this biochar as a soil amendment, mixing it in has fertilizing value, but it is, we call it a soil amendment. For carbon credits, we're dealing with CIRC's char track, which has this representation. The circs.io website, CERCS, is up and coming and we're having things out for it. I'm not going to go through the details of it, except that we have this program and it's available. It's pretty much exclusive for us because I'm working with the man that's developing it, but will be able to be used with other projects if somebody is interested in it. We're not holding back on it in any way, shape, or form. Some more things written up about CIRCs, and if you know about blockchain and things like that, using an immutable ledger to capture digitally signed, time-stamped, all of the keywords. This stuff is a good program. It's really taking it to the next level. Cryptographic hashes, etc. So I'll let you come back to look at that there. CIRC's registry is to be able to then process these things through. And eventually we're also planning to have a CIRC's GIS so that we're able to more closely match up where we're placing the char on the actual, into the ground for those purposes. Some lessons learned. Field work is at the mercy of the local weather. The number of times that it's been raining and the rains came early, the rains were there at night, or the stuff is wet and we have to wait for it to dry. This is one of the reasons why we don't get very many runs per day in like we'd like to have. If it was dry stuff, we could operate the kiln 2, 3, 4 runs per day and absolutely increase the numbers. But at biomass quantities that are abundant and ready, meaning that they are dry enough, production could double, triple with each rock kiln. Our labor costs are about $5 per person, per worker in there. Commercial value of biochar is not yet established, needs to be established so that we are able to get some money back for this biochar. Currently, we're using it in demonstration plots to help make this established. This is a financial drain. It hurts the cash flow, but it's part of the sort of the cost of doing business with biochar. Financial operations, we have a full-time project manager, Gilbert Mwangi. Gilbert is a university graduate. He's worked in management. He has years of experience. He has a family and children and he supports them all. This is not something that you can just do on a shoestring and somebody can do it. I cannot do it from the United States. COVID stopped a lot of the travel, nor was I living there anyway. You must have a project manager. So this comes through, you have your labor costs. Basically, the costs of the rock kilns is almost negligible compared to the operations costs of using it per day. So we're like 50 cents a day if you want to amortize out the cost of it. Biomass has been provided free from the landowners. Some of them are just happy for us to get it off their land. Some of them actually help us cut it and move it and things like that. The project is open to additional sponsors and donors. Let me repeat that. That's a plug. If anybody would like to help out with a project in Kenya, this particular one, please let me know. There's also an offer that we will assist you, not financially, but assist you with all the know-how for doing projects elsewhere in your chosen area. But these are what we're doing there. Future steps and conclusion. We're only 7 months of activities there in Bungoma. The commercial value of the biochar is not yet evident. Replications with variations in other countries are encouraged. Initial steps already underway with Venezuela, Bolivia, El Salvador. Contact me for assistance to help you get the pieces right, get it to work out things, that's fine. So can come up with all that. So this is the last slide for discussion, question and answers. My website, woodgas.com, is the main place to go. Look at the resources tab on it for find the various documentations. There is also a set for different countries. /VEN is for Venezuela. KEN is for Kenya, using the international labels on it. Again, my contact information and the website that's up there. We'll have time for little questions. I haven't had time to even look at the clock. Christian, I think I spoke pretty fast. I think I got through it enough time. Okay.
Great. Well on time, Paul. Thank you very much. It's really interesting what you build up there together with your team in Kenya. If any questions, please write into the chat or unmute yourself to ask directly, whatever is faster for you. And Paul, you got your first question from Rob. Do you or others have any plans for making biochar at a larger scale in Kenya or elsewhere? Wouldn't larger scale production be more economic?
Larger scale has two aspects. One is bigger equipment, and the other one is more of the same, smaller equipment. We would like to do both. We did a sample at a sugarcane processing plant with some of the bagasse. It was successful. It gave us biochar, but we're not set up for them. They didn't choose to build a unit or to build a bigger unit or how they want to do it. The upscaling can be certainly automated in many different ways, but it dramatically increases the pricing. And this is the difference between trying to do something in developing countries versus in America and Europe. So to answer the question about upscaling, we want to upscale our current project simply by getting these kilns running 3 or 4 times in each day. But we have problems of getting enough biomass, finding the right spots. We're still on the learning curve.
Thank you, Paul. So the next question is from Javier. Do you know your main chemical and physical characteristics of your biochar? So do you have any characterization of them available?
I knew someone would ask it. Okay. We spent $100 to send a sample of our char to a laboratory in Nairobi, Kenya. And we got the results back, and I will not even release them because I do not have confidence in the results. I mean, it was corn stover as the biochar, and it was far too high of a fixed carbon ratio. I'd love to say, oh yeah, we're that good. The results there's some studies from China, corn stover is producing like 55% fixed carbon in the biochar. And so I'm not going to go out and try to tell people we're going to do 74%. Otherwise, we have not yet done those other testing. We're relying a lot on the fact that other tests have been done. Biochar done in a rock kiln is very similar to the biochar from the 4C kilns from before. I've got some tests from that. We're confident that it's a reasonable char.
Offer from my side, if you only need fixed carbon and you can pay for the postage, you can send us samples. So fixed carbon is the cheap one. I can do that for you. The next question is from Felipe about what soil parameters are you able to measure in your field trials that you are setting up right now?
What soil parameters?
Yes. So what are you actually looking at? Are you looking at the crop yield or also soil parameters?
I'd like to say all of the above. I mean, this is where, it is such a first-time project with this type of situation. We're trying to cover all these issues. There's a soil analysis that's been done in the area. We're watching these things, but a lot of it we will be having a direct comparison of the crop growing, the same plots of land, close together. Visually, they're all going to get the same rain and all this type of stuff, and all planting in the same day. So we were hoping for a visual differentiation between the different treatments of our plots.
The next question from Monica. Have you or do you plan to verify any difference in the quality of the biochar from the different biomass types?
Would love to do it. I'm hoping that someone will offer to help us with that too. Oh, Christian, we might be sending you several different samples so we can get the fixed content depending on what the biomass was as the source. we need all the help we can get with this. And if somebody has any ideas on it, and if somebody needs data for their thesis or senior project or something, let us know. And please, you're welcome to visit us in Kenya.
So, and another question from Rob. Can you see this approach working at a smaller scale? So at the stove scale with carbon credits approach you're using. So using your carbon credits app, I think, for a stove scale application.
For what? Stove scale?
Oh, yeah.
Stoves, absolutely, yes. Actually, it was originally started, CharTrack was originally started with a stove project in India, where we were measuring the charcoal that was being produced out of the TLUD stoves, and there's a whole discussion methodology about that. We're ready for it, and this is we need some sponsors and things like that. And by the way, if anybody knows anybody that's got any money, please just put me in touch with them. Let me talk to them. I'll gladly explain the benefits. Oh, I did one other thing recently with regard to the stoves. There was of the 17 sustainable development goals, I am able to identify 11 of them which have direct justifiable benefits in relation to the TLUD cook stoves, and it will relate mostly to the rock kiln too.
So if anyone has any money here, please talk with Paul. The two last questions now. Following up on the last one from Trevor, are you trying to collaborate with local universities in Kenya?
There is no local university in Bungoma, where the place that we're at. Our contact with Kisii University, which is 5 or 6 hours away, is tenuous. I mean, it's not, it's not a well-established. We would love to have these connections, but again, anybody that's got some ways to help link us up, we're open for the ideas.
And you have an additional question from Pushpanjali. What type of soil is used in your field trials? Do you know the type of soil in the pot?
I'm sorry, I don't. I mean, I wish Gilbert was on the line and he could help answer that. It is not a particularly fertile soil. I mean, it's on the acidic side, so therefore the biochar will help in terms of raising the pH a little bit. But it's highly leached. Well, actually, but see, we are in a volcanic area of Kenya. This is why all these areas of Africa have such a high population there. There's soil characteristics are reasonable, but they've got the moisture and stuff. But the soils have been worked for years and years and years.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. I think we will jump to Manish's presentation and see if it works now.